Grave Digger Queen checking in. This is part 2 of Barton Wiley introduces Miss Kenzie Moore, spirit photographer. To catch y'all up, Barton Wiley is a shock DJ to a podcast. He had a guest on named Kenzie Moore who took a spooky photograph of another guest named Malcolm, and she died after looking at that spooky picture. Now Barton thinks something is up, like maybe something is wrong with Malcolm, and now he's trying to find out. See you at the end, children. Barton Wiley had a long and sleepless night. It was filled with coffee and takeout like that of old school investigations, back when finding truth was more important than pointing at conjecture and making a story around the most interesting part, whether it was true or not. Barton scoured the internet for any information on Malcolm, and in doing so, he realized just how much he trusted this man's intel on stories having very little factual knowledge on him. For all he knew, he could be the very person he was accusing. It wasn't until now did he realize just how far away from his initial vision he strayed. Malcolm was the lead singer in a metal band 10 years ago called the Dead Pussies. He posted on Twitter very infrequently, and most of the followers he had were the fans he had gotten through his appearances on his show. He seemed to have no family or friends he was in contact with. Malcolm appeared to be living a minimalist lifestyle and was content to skulk in the shadows of obscurity before he fucked around and got famous. This investigation, if nothing else, told him he had gotten soft. He didn't have time to put boots on the ground before Malcolm's next appearance, but he was confident now more than ever he was going to have to put on his snooping hat after so many years of complacency. Barton walked into his recording studio with his coffee in hand, sober as a judge. He had met Jet in the hall and synced up with her gait. She could sense the energy in him immediately and the confidence of new unchallenged purpose put through a crucible of fire. "You okay, Bart?" Jet asked as she unlocked the studio door. "Yeah, I am. What time is Malcolm coming today?" he asked. "Same time as usual. Last segment, batting cleanup." "When does he come in, though?" Bart asked, because he never knew. He couldn't see him from the studio, but Jet was watching the waiting room. "He usually gets here 15 minutes or so before it's time." "Okay, send him in whenever he gets here, okay?" While Jet was visibly filled with trepidation, it wasn't enough to cause alarm. She nodded, opened the booth for him, then sat on her side of the glass. Barton took a few moments out to show respect for Miss Moore, but other than that, it rolled on with the same vigor as any other show. He went on a rant about transhumanism and how it might cross over to transspeciesism. It, in the end, was an endorsement of freaky genetic testing, then did an interview with a man in love with the urinal. He was mentally fortifying himself for the inquisition he was about to lay on Malcolm, even glancing at the Polaroid with its face turned, taped to the mixer. When Jet gave him the hand signal he was about to get another guess, he straightened up and gulped down coffee. He thanked the lesbian prostitute dog walker who had hard intel on the mayor's nocturnal activities. Malcolm casually walked in the studio with an outfit similar to the day before. Leather coat with wild black hair that more than likely didn't get washed unless it accidentally took soap from the shower. The paid ad for Blue Chew played out while the two men settled into their seats. Jet signaled them when they were back on. "Hey man, thanks for coming back," said Barton. "You know it." "Sorry about all the craziness that happened yesterday," said Barton. "Couldn't be helped. I mean, you're old and have a weak heart. I guess it was bound to happen," said Malcolm. It was at that moment Barton stopped and flipped the Polaroid on the console around so Malcolm could make it out. "Is that me? The picture that took her out?" Malcolm said with a bit more glee than Barton thought warranted for the situation. Malcolm snatched the picture off the console with no reverence and looked at it. He made the sign of the devil with his fingers and said with unabashed enthusiasm, "That's metal as fuck." Upon seeing Malcolm's reaction, Barton instantly began to believe he had overreacted and just tried to read into a tragedy to make it feel less pointless. "For my viewers, Malcolm looks like some manner of demonic beast in Miss Kenzie's spirit photo." "So, what do you make of this?" asked Barton. You got me. I'm the devil," Malcolm said playfully. Barton laughed in that moment of levity and decided to not go back on his questioning, but to change the tone of the accusations to match his energy. After 20 minutes of banter, the two hadn't got to anything controversial for the show. "So, is that how you feel?" said Barton to Malcolm. The long-haired rocker nodded. "Yeah, when you think about it, gangbangs are like the porn equivalent of the Marvel crossover movie." "Don't see how you figure that exactly, but let's just move on. I was going to ask you about that Polaroid and if you had some sort of relationship with evil. But I got sidetracked," Barton said, as if he were just casually making conversation. Malcolm laughed. "Why? Because I took a spooky picture? You'd think you'd have a little more than that if you were to put my ties to this plane of existence on blast. Why, we called the mayor of Denmark a pod person for having a stupid sneeze," Barton clapped back. "So, what if I was the devil, huh? What would that matter?" "If you were, it would fall into question anything I've gotten from you." "You're trying to high-road me after all the people we shit on together? So, walk me through it. How was your pitch gonna go?" Malcolm asked without malice or accusation. "I was gonna question your background, and at the very end snap a Polaroid of you." Barton took Miss Kenzie's camera from a desk. "That is bold. I'll give you that, Barton. If I really was the devil, and you outed me, what would stop me from brutally eviscerating you the moment you proved it?" Barton smiled and laughed. "Go ahead, take the picture then," Malcolm said confidently. Barton didn't really see any red flags. Without fanfare or preamble, he snapped a picture. "I hope it makes you feel better," Malcolm said with a smile. Barton shook the Polaroid. After a long glance at the newly minted picture, he gasped, and his heart skipped a beat. The image was overexposed in a similar way to the last. There was a thick sheen of red and orange draped over Malcolm's simple image. "What?" Malcolm said, who was making a chiffing laugh. "It got me again. Shit, I must be the devil then," Malcolm spoke. Barton didn't know what to think of this entire process. He couldn't rightly call it bullshit because it did at least seem to have an internal logic to it. "You want me to do you?" Malcolm said, playing along with the bit. Barton handed over the Polaroid camera. Malcolm snapped a picture and waited for the little ticket to slide out the bottom. They did a little banter back and forth to kill 30 seconds of time, but it was inconsequential. Malcolm revealed his findings only for it to be similar to the picture Kenzie snapped the day before of him. "So we're shifting gears, and it leads me to wonder, is ADD for people that never found true focus, or is it a legit medical condition?" said Barton. While he did successfully change the subject, he only did so because he so thoroughly didn't understand what was happening with the spirit photo. He didn't mind sounding like a lunatic, but he at very least wanted to sound like a well-informed lunatic. He was going to have to go back to an earlier version of himself and truly understand the subject he meant to praise or debunk, not take the lazy path of just good enough sensationalism. The rest of Malcolm's segment was all smiles and pod people, entertaining if not far-fetched. Barton signed off for all his sassy viewers and extended his hand to Malcolm, as he did after every show. "Thanks for coming down." Malcolm nodded and waited for the broadcast to be officially on dead air. "Do you plan on going deeper into the spirit photography shit?" Malcolm asked. Barton took a moment to honestly think, and he wondered if a lie was in order, but he decided against it. "Yeah, couldn't hurt, I guess." Malcolm took in a deep sigh, as if this answer wasn't a casual query, but something that had deep substance. Malcolm leaned back in his chair, relaxing so deeply it was as if he took off his belt and pants and was lounging about the house. "You know I'm not the devil, right?" said Malcolm. "Yeah, I know, I was just fucking around." "I know you were, but even still, you were leading up to something." Malcolm paused, making sure it was just dramatic enough to convey gravitas. I'm not the devil. I'd say I'm more a general, or maybe more hell's propaganda minister like Goebbels or something. Anyone that claims to be the capital D devil is either crazy or full of himself. Barton's face twisted with a nervous confusion, shifting between funny and extremely concerned, having a hard time seeing if it was real. Malcolm smiled, which prompted him to smile, dispelling any notion it was serious. Malcolm's face rubber-banded back to gravely serious. I'm not fucking around, Barton. I have always been that, and there never was a Malcolm. Barton stared into Malcolm, waiting to see if his face would break, but it didn't. The air seemed to be inhabited by two men attempting to probe the other to see who broke first. Jet knocked on the window of the studio, giving a temporary reprieve. I'm out of here, she said, but it was heard in barely a whisper through the sound-dampened glass. Malcolm waved the woman off with a smile, masking any hints of sinister purpose. So you're Satan's PR guy, and you're demonic, or are you a human henchman of the beast? No, I'm full demon, and yes, I could rip you apart. So you just hang out and do what exactly? Isn't it obvious? I feed you information that we like to promote. So you're a demon. Correct, said Malcolm. Can you prove it? Why? You were content with the idea of a righteous inquisition, and now you want a smoking gun? No, you're gonna have to take my word for it. What if I just stop booking you as a guest? Malcolm scoffed. But you won't, because you need to figure out the truth, so you're not gonna do that. I think it's easier to just tell you this up front, seeing how much you kept trying to dance around it. But what would you do? Nothing good, Malcolm said with a smirk of confidence. Malcolm, or whatever his name truly was, sighed, letting out air to deflate the tension in the room. Look, Barton, out of all the agents I've worked with, I think I like you the most, so why don't you do yourself a favor and not fuck this up? We know you're gonna investigate this to find out the truth. Maybe you'll try to, quote-unquote, do the right thing, but in the end, it won't turn out well for you if you outright defy us. So, do what you have to do to get it out of your system so we can get back to business as usual. Am I on tomorrow? Malcolm waited there nonchalantly. Barton was dazed as a deer in the headlights, unable to cohesively act or think his way ahead to understand the next logical step. Malcolm grew weary of his non-reaction and just told him what was what. I'll see you tomorrow, Barton. The podcaster sat there unmoving, even after he heard the door close shut. Grave Digger Queen coming back, and thank you for staying till the end. Like and subscribe. Now there's something I would like you to do for me, children, and that is look for part 3. And I leave you with a warning, my darlings. If you ever snap that picture, make sure you don't see the devil in it. Good night, children. Sleep tight.